Okay, so we have done task 1. We now can move on to task 2, and that is checking that students only vote once. Each student is given a unique voter number by their teacher, and we're going to extend our task 1 to achieve the following. We're going to allow students to enter their unique voter number before casting their vote, and then we're going to check if they've already voted, and if they have, then we're going to say, sorry, you can't vote, you've already voted. And if they have not voted, then we're going to store that unique voter number but not their vote, because that would track who they voted for. But we're going to store that in a suitable data structure and add their vote to the relevant candidate count or abstention. So basically, actually, although that sounds quite complicated, it's really simple. We're just going to have an input. So if we're allowing the students to enter their unique voter number, we're just doing input, getting them to enter that voter number. Now, there's no specification here as to what that should be. And you can decide on criteria if you want. You could, for example, give them a number or a letter and a number. There's nothing to say that or what we're going to check. So actually, we're just going to do the minimum. If you want to embellish what I do in this, of course you can go right ahead and do that at any point. But what I'll do is I'll just get them to enter their number and then check to see if we've stored it before. So it says here, it says store it in a suitable data structure. Again, whenever they talk about data structures, they're actually just talking about arrays. So what we're going to do is create an array to store the voter number, and then we just check that array to see every time that a new person comes to vote, we check that array to see if they voted before, and if it's in there, we know they have voted, and we say sorry, you can't. And if it's not in that array, then they haven't voted. So what we also need to do, well, here as well, there's a big clue here about how we're going to do this. If we're going to check to see if they voted before, it says if they've already voted. And then if not, it's a big clue there that we need an if statement. So we're going to input their unique ID, use an if statement to check the array to see if they have voted before. If they haven't, we'll let them vote, and then we'll add their ID to that list. If not, then we'll just put an error message to say, sorry, you have already voted. So let's open the code from task 1 and let's have a look at where we can put that in. Okay, so here is the code from task 1, and what we're going to do is, before we let the person vote, which was this code here where we're letting them enter their vote here, we're going to get them to enter their unique ID first. And then we're going to let them vote afterwards. So let's do that first. Let's get their voter ID. So we need to create a variable for that to be entered. So we're going to call that unique ID, or voter unique ID, something meaningful like that, voter unique ID. And then we're going to get them to enter it. Now, again, you could, the format of this is up to you. They don't specify this in the pre-release, and they've kind of done that on purpose. They do leave certain things like this ambiguous, so you can decide. Now, I'm just going to basically have it as a string. I'm not going to put any stipulation on what that unique ID should be. So I'm just going to put enter your unique voter ID, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if they've voted before. So it said that we need to have an array to store that, or it says a data structure, but they mean an array. It's always an array for this exam board. So we need to create that array to store all the people who have voted in the unique voter ID. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the top of the code where I've created all my other arrays, and I'm going to create another one, and I'm just going to call it voter IDs. You could call it unique voter IDs. Anything that you feel is more appropriate would be fine, but I'm going to call it voter IDs. So then I'm going to check to see if if the person, what the person has entered, the voter unique ID, to see if it's already in that array. So we need an if statement for this. So I'm going to say if the voter unique ID, can't spell today, vote unique ID, there we go, is in the voter IDs. So that's our array, voter IDs, that is what I called it, isn't it? Yes, it is voter IDs, just copy that, there we go. So if what they've just entered is in our array, that's what that's saying, then we're going to say, sorry, you've already voted. Sorry, you have already voted. If they haven't voted, so we've got an else here, then we can just let them vote. So we just need to select all of that code there. So do this really carefully, just pay attention to this. Select all of that bit where they're voting and then just tab it forward once so that it's part of that else statement. So they can only vote if they haven't already voted. Okay. So the only other thing we need to do is we've checked to see if they've already voted, and if they haven't, they can vote. We need to make sure that we add their voter unique ID into the array to show that they have voted. So all we have to do is put voter IDs dot append and then the voter unique ID, like that. And that means that whatever they entered, they can it's now entered into that array. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete those two bits of debug from the previous task. We don't need that anymore. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to print out the voter IDs array to show the unique IDs. So let's run that, and we'll just remove that print statement here afterwards. Again, you know, this is all just stuff to just show us what's going on as we're coding. Okay, so I'm going to just add in everything that we need. I'm going to add 5. Again, we've got a really low number of students, so we don't have to spend ages testing. Enter the number of candidates 2. So we've got me again. Oh, I can't spell my name though. And then Bob. So now here it's prompting me to enter my unique voter ID. So I'm just going to enter anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Well, actually, I'll just put Julia 1, for example. That's my unique voter ID. It's checked that I haven't voted. It says enter the number of the candidate you are voting for, 999 to abstain. So I'm going to vote for myself again. And here we can see that the unique voter ID array has been printed out. So if I want to vote again, then I'm going to enter my name again. So I'm going to enter the same thing, Julia 1, that's my unique voter ID. But there it says, sorry, you have already voted. Okay, so that is working correctly. I'm very happy with that. And that is basically task 2 done. So it is actually a nice, simple change, not too much work going on there. Task 1 was definitely the bulk of the work. So that is task 2 done, a nice, simple, easy addition to our code. And now we can move on to task 3.